right. Hello, welcome everyone to the July edition of the PowerAddicts Meetup. I'm Vivek Bhavishi, aka that API guy, and today we are gonna have some exciting stuff from some of the community members, some SVG magic, which Robin's gonna present. We are super excited about it. And Nora and Chris are going to talk about the new Express design. If you haven't checked it out yet, they're going to talk a little bit more about it and show you some magic over there as well. So I guess before we get started with Robin, maybe just a quick congratulations to all the MVPs who got renewed. So congratulations, everyone. And yep. Some announcements, I guess. There's going to be a Power Platform conference coming up in September. There's DynamicsCon also coming up. So watch out for those conferences. There's some good speakers in there. Sign up for those. Power Platform conference is September 20 to 22, I think. And they have some workshops as well. DynamicsCon is a week before that. Both of them are in Orlando in US. So yeah, great events, some great sessions in there. So if you want to do an in-person event, or finally, you can go to Orlando and attend these. And Nikita, thanks for sharing those links. All right. So any other announcements, Geeta, before we get started? Sorry.
I think you covered it all the big ones. So we're good.
Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, I guess, Robin, thank you for joining us from a very late time zone. So we should get better at this. We should probably do more European time zone friendly time slots. So we'll definitely do that in the future. But yeah, we are super excited to see what you have to present on the SVG stuff. We saw a little bit of teaser yesterday, and all of us are super excited about it. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Vivek, and yeah, thanks for having me here. Actually, the time for me is perfect. It's usually my most productive time of the day where I do exactly the stuff what I'm going to show you today, where I think a little bit, try out new stuff. Kids are in bed, and all the European-friendly events are around 6 or 7 p.m. right here, where it's dinner time. And yeah, I have no time for that. So I actually pretty much like the midnight session of the
awesome then. Great that it worked out for you then.
Yeah. Let's jump into my topic. First of all, a little introduction. My name is Robin. I'm actually a civil engineer, work as a Power Platform enabler, also as a freelancer, do some YouTube videos. Probably interesting for you if you want to get started with the topic of SVG, where we have more step-by-step tutorials how to do some stuff. I post some creative stuff I do on Twitter, like yesterday, this small video. And probably most important for you, my GitHub is PowerRobin, where I have some of the MS App files uploaded you're going to see today. And that brings me to the topic: improve your UI with SVGs in Power Apps, Canvas apps, or more so like expand the whole UI capability that Power Apps brings. So we're gonna take that whole thing to the next level, and I separated this already into 6 levels, and that's the app that is uploaded on my GitHub, and I used it for the Power Apps community call. Half of my presentation will be about this app, and then we venture into some stuff I did since February or March. Don't know when I presented it there. So, like I said, I divided everything into 6 levels where you probably have done some of that stuff and get to the next level from there on. The first level everyone has done who used Canvas apps, I think, just use a static SVG image in your app. So throw an image control in there and use a URL that points to an SVG image or upload it in your media. So really simple stuff. We don't look anymore into that. Next thing becomes a little more interesting, where we actually use SVG code to define an image and do some stuff with the code, interact with the app. So when I click on here, my hair color changes. The next step you already saw probably is a little donut chart right here, and some animation also here, some animation going on. And animation is actually pretty simple in SVG and is a real eye catcher in your app, I think. And then what probably comes as a surprise for the people who haven't looked into the topic, I use the concat function a lot. Concat function is a function to manipulate strings, texts, and because all the code inside is just text for Power Apps, we can use this function to create, extend, and create something like this or this. And yeah, this is the next step. And here it gets really interesting, because I actually started with the topic of maps and coloring maps through SVG code inside my Power Apps. And every time I showed this to someone, they said, yeah, it's cool. You can click somewhere in your app, like on the gallery, and then highlight a part of the map. But can you do it the other way around? Like click on the SVG image and interact like this with the image. And this also works, but not with the standard capabilities of Power Apps. I actually had to learn how to write a PCF for that. And yeah, I did that a lot around this time of the day. Yeah, trying out, learning about PCF and getting a functioning SVG PCF that is interactive. And for the last part is another PCF that I worked on, where you actually get drag and drop functionality. And yeah, I'm gonna showcase in the end a small game I made for my daughter that I teased in the Power Apps community call. And now I have the finished product. But first of all, let's look into SVGs, the really basic level. What is an SVG? And actually, yeah, I learned to be an engineer, but my mother is actually a designer, a graphic designer, and taught graphic design. So I learned around 20 years ago what an SVG is. And not about the code, but about vector graphics. And let's look into the difference between a PNG and an SVG. PNG is pixel-based, so you just define which pixel has which color. When you zoom in, you see the pixels. SVG is completely different. You write code and tell the image where the lines go. So you say we have a line from here to there, and it does some smooth curves, and then we have a line around here, and it's filled green. And let's look into the code how an easy SVG image, what an easy SVG image looks like. Pretty basic one. So what we do in Power Apps is just get an image control, like you can see here. I named it I'm an image control, so you know it's an image control. And then normally you put in a URL in here, or you put in the media you uploaded to your app in here. So just one word or one URL. But you can also, when you use this kind of header, you can also put SVG code in here. So this is important. And this defines the XML namespace. So you tell the app that the next lines are SVG code. And here you define how big the image is. And SVG code is actually pretty easy to understand for the basic shapes like a rectangle. We have a view box right here that is reaches from 0, 0 to 1,000, 1,000. So when we have a rectangle that is reaches from 100, 100 and 800 wide and high, you have a square that is red with a thick border and is filled white. So we have this square, actually pretty easy. And now we're gonna mash it up, mix it up, and bring some Power Apps code into our SVG code. I want to point out something right here. Text, I said it. It's basically all this stuff in here is basically just text. You can see it in the quotation marks right here. And so we can just bring in other text from outside. So right here, we bring in the value of a slider. So we have a circle right here, and we have the radius is dynamic and is defined by the slider. So when we hit the Alt key and use our slider, the circle gets bigger and smaller. And you see this picture is rendered all the time, and it's actually pretty fast. I see on my end no delay. Probably you see some delay through the Teams call, but performance is actually pretty good using these SVG images. And then we have some more code in here. Of course, we can do some other stuff and hide whole objects. And I want to look into this dinosaur object a little bit closer, because before we had a circle line, and then for the triangle and the dinosaur, we have a path object. Path objects are the ones that you probably don't understand from looking at them. Like, this is a whole mess. But you will get this code from graphical programs, the dinosaur is actually from PowerPoint. I can export it to SVG and then got the code from there. But not everything is round or is a rectangle. So most of the objects you will use are paths. So sooner or later you need to kind of understand what they do, but not what this, you don't have to imagine what this cubic Bezier curve that is defined right here looks like. And now we get to the point where it gets really interesting, I think, for me, starting with the concat command. And to switch right here. And we will look at this in a second. This whole map is one line, only one line of SVG code in Power Apps. So we have the header and the closing SVG tag. Okay, but this whole thing is defined by one line of code with the help of the concat command. When we do this, there come a few more lines of code into play, but not too complicated at all. So let's look at this one line of code. This is actually the whole map. And we, of course, now we're using some tricks that was Gita talking about. And the first trick is we have all the information we need to display this map in this collection. This collection can also be, I have it actually in a SharePoint list right here. I think it's from here. And we have parts of the SVG code. So the defining elements of the path, so from which point to which point the path goes, is in here in the SharePoint list. You can, of course, store it in Dataverse, Excel tables, or wherever you like, and then use the concat command. So this collection has 16 rows for the 16 states of Germany. And with this concat, we get 16 paths, and each path is different, and the coordinates for the paths are inside the collection from the SharePoint list. And when we get a little more creative and use it as a chart, then of course we also have this one path again, and then we are animating it to another color. So from here everything is the same, and then we are using the color to show the population. I will turn it on again. And here we actually do the same thing. We have 16 bars, one for each row of the collection. and using the concat command again to display these bars, or use the concat command here to display the texts of the German states. And let's kick it up another notch and look into the PCF a little bit. The PCF, when you look at it in the editor, it's actually feels a little bit the same. I wanted to keep it as flexible as possible, so I didn't do a PCF for the German map of the 16 German states, but I did a PCF where you can write your own SVG code just in there. And yeah, again, we are using all the same tricks, all the same concats, and like I said, I did a lengthy half-an-hour video how to use this PCF, even if you have never used a PCF before. When you have the SVG code going for you and you know what you're doing in there, then this will be no problem for you. We just add a class right here so we can select this. And I want to get a little bit more in depth why we can select something before on the other images, on the image controls when we put SVG code in there. And I have a really easy demo here, really small demo where we have the same picture, basically the same picture we looked at before, but in two versions. And on one version, and I can guarantee you, we will look at it in a second, it's exactly the same code right here. But on this side, you can do nothing with it. On this side, something happens. We have some animation going on here, and we can put a link on here. And it's exactly the same code. Let's look at it. Bring VS Code in right here. So this is the left image, and this is the right image. And what we are doing up to this point in PowerApps was using an image control, and when it's rendered, when it's HTML code in the end that is displayed in the browser, it's something like this. It's an image, HTML image tag, and you have to source. This should look familiar. It's exactly the same that we put into the Power App. And then we have our XML namespace and so on. But we can use inside of HTML code, we can also use real SVG tags and not use it inside of an image control or inside of HTML image tags. And then we can do a lot of stuff that we normally can do with HTML code, like bringing in some custom CSS for hover effects or for other stuff, or using hyperlinks like this here. And the PCF control does nothing else, or few things, but mainly it does this, cuts out the image control you needed before and puts directly SVG tags around it, so you can use it, and has some small tricks that allows you to pass values back to your Power App and do some interesting stuff. With that, I have the stupid top bar and it doesn't want to go away. Now it's away, but I clicked my window away. So back to the app. And let's look at what we can achieve with this. So again, like you saw on the first page, you can click on here, but now the map changes. So it's all the same image, but conditional on which stage we are. We show a different image, zoom into one state and get to the next level. And this is actually where I live. And it's far easier for the user to use something like this, click on a map when they know what the map looks like. But we can also select stuff from here. So we can actually mix it up and click here some more, or delete it right here. So I think it's thousands of possibilities what you can do with this, and this is actually pretty easy to use. Now let's get to the last part, to the drag and drop functionality. And as promised, I will show you the app that I teased in the community call, which I did for my daughter, because my daughter always comes into my room, asks what I am doing, what I am working on, and I always tell her I'm working on an app. I build apps for a living. And then she always asks, and when do you build an app for me? Because I never built her an app. And she made a quick drawing at some point and demanded something like this, I think, something like this. Yeah. And this is what came out of it. And this actually works on, or is designed to work on the smartphone. It's a generated rainbow path that gets more complicated as the level progresses, and it tracks if you are on the path or leave the path, and then you lose a life. And yeah, I think she managed to get to level 13 or something. I managed to get to level 18. Yeah, fun little game. The game itself was really easy to do. What was the more annoying part was getting the PCF right, so it works on computer, on smartphone, and does the tracking of the paths and the collision with the path when you leave the path. Yeah, but it was fun expanding my knowledge and learning about PCFs that way. And yes, now for the last part, I want to give you some resources from me that you can use and get started, because I actually 1.5 years ago, I think, I overloaded an app with so many SVG usage, which please don't use that much in your apps. But it showcases a lot of stuff you can do. And yeah, you can get some inspiration from that. Like I said, it's on my GitHub. You can download it and yeah, look how I build it and probably build something out of that. So let's click on a few buttons right here and see what happens. This map was probably the biggest part, map of the whole world, all the countries, and there is Excel data embedded into the app, so it's plug and play. You don't need to connect to any data source, and it actually uses, except for the Excel connector, no other connectors, I think. So hopefully you can use it. And yeah, the most difficult part was, I think, the zoom from one country to another country. And I would say, because I love this image as well, I say thanks, Geeta, for inviting me, presenting at the PowerAddicts meetup. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now or via Twitter later. I have a soft spot for people who use SVG and always willing to help.
This is amazing, Robin. I mean, I'm pretty sure people's minds are blown right now with the amount of SVG kind of magic, not magic, but the amount of hard work, I guess, you have put on all these SVGs. That's commendable, and you have made it available to the community to just download and use it. That's amazing as well, because I know a lot of this, I mean, a lot of people can just repurpose it for some other things that they want to do with SVG. So this is really great. One question I had: do you have you used, like, do you see SVGs being used in your kind of business world as well? Have you do you use it often for your apps?
Yeah, like I said, not as heavy as showcased in the apps, but I try to use some parts, like a button that blinks, draws the attention to there, like a small chart. And it all started actually, there was the request that they wanted to show the areas of key counters on a German map, and that got it all started. And yeah, that's a use case that I use a lot, like show the German map and then show the dots where stuff is from the coordinates or something like this. Yeah, I use it on the regular because I have, for lots of use cases, I have stuff prepared. So it's copy and paste and pretty quickly integrated into my apps.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Thank you again for presenting and showing us all this amazing work that you have done. I know a lot of people will use this for in their apps as well. Copy, paste, and modify, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
it takes a little bit of practice to get
yeah,
started.
yeah.
But,
I mean, it's not that easy as I'm saying it, but at least people have a starting point. And I know there are other people who have done some SVG charts as well.
I think Todd Baginski that did a component that is probably a little more accessible to people who don't want to look into the SVG code but want to use SVGs.
Yeah, and I think I myself have used that for some apps where people don't want to use Power BI because Power BI has a license associated with it, and people just want to show some basic charts, and they're like, okay, let's just use. And the Power Apps charts, to be honest, are not the best. So SVG makes it a bit more interesting and nicer to show the data. All right. I guess we can move on to our next presenters. We have two presenters, Chris and Norah. Thank you for joining. And they are going to talk about the new Express Design kind of feature that came to Power Apps, let's say a couple of months, not more than that. So go ahead, Norah. The floor is yours. Are you excited to see this?
Yeah, sorry. 1 minute. So hello, everyone. Thank you for having me in this PowerAddicts meetup. It's really exciting for me to join this session. I think it is my first time joining such meetups, and thank you for having me. So a little bit introduction for myself. I am a product manager in Power Apps team, and I work closely with Chris on this Power Apps Express design feature, which was announced earlier, I think, in Microsoft Build. So if you have already watched that build sessions, it will be mostly similar, but with some slight updates. And I'll be primarily talking about the image and Figma to app feature, while Chris will cover the API to app feature. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. I'll just jump quickly through the introduction part, assuming probably you can see it in many of the posts already. So the reason that we introduce Express Design is for the fact that we consider that we've been hearing from our users, our makers, that there's just a huge app backlog for them to burn down. And sometimes it's just time consuming for them to do all those nitty gritty works to fine tune their UI. So we want to provide them a way to, you guys a way to jump directly into the core piece. Or hopefully some fun part, instead of you need to worry about how do I start an app, what is the best setup, how do I learn how to use all this different controls, and then connect with your data. And this is designed, Express Design is kind of designed to fit for all different personas. Like, for example, the citizen personas, you may have some designs on paper, and with image to app, you can upload that screenshot or a picture of your design and get an app started for you. And if you're a designer or you work with designers, then probably you can ask your designer to use our Figma UI kit to create an app, design an app, and then convert it directly into a Power App without the devs and designers needs to go back and forth, talk about hey, how do we implement this area? How do we implement that component, etc. But if you're a pro developer, which Chris will cover later, that you don't want to care about the kind of UI nitty-gritty work, and you just have an API and you want to bring it to making an app, then Chris will showcase how amazing this API to app functionality is. Now let's jump into the image to app topic. So this is a very simple flow. Like you have your image, and we will use some AI models here, which includes specifically the object detection to identify the controls, like a rectangle might be a button or it might be a text input. And we will use the OCR, which is the text recognition model, to extract the text from your image. And then we will, there is an optional step for you to set up data, and currently it's in Dataverse only. And you can feel free to skip if you don't want to do data right now, and then you will get your app. Let's jump into a quick demo to see how this works. So I'm right now at the portal, and this is all in preview, so you can also try it by yourself. I see this introduction of knowing what's recommended images versus not. I can name my app in this little wizard. Some updates we did is, this is like showing you how many sample image, we support some sample images, but in this demo, I'll try my own image, and we will tell you this is maximum 4 MB. And we also added some zoom in out feature for you to for you to ease the tagging process. And this is like what tagging looks like. It may not be 100% accurate in the first round, but you can determine like which one you want to change. Like here, I did change this to some radio buttons, and I'll just delete the existing and add a new one. And if that all looks good, I'll just proceed to the next step. And this is the data part, which I mentioned you can choose to skip. But here I'm just trying to show you the full capability where I can decide which one should be a column in my form, the form I created. And in this case, I put the last 3 components as a column. And in the end, I could see my table schema that I generated, and this is the app, the final app. And you can start from there to do some more fun things like core logic, add core logic into your app, or maybe decide to add more pretty parts of the app. So that's image to app. The next one is the Figma to app. So with Figma to app, we would ask you to start designing a Power App using the Figma UI toolkit, which I'll introduce later. And then you will simply just enter the Figma file details by uploading the link and some access token, the read-only access token, and then we will generate an app. So this part, I just want to mention, it is not using any AI models at all. It's basically reading from the Figma files, so from the layers you created and generate you an app. Of course, let's jump into a demo. So I can still see the Figma card, and all I need is the app name, link to Figma, and personal access token. So I'll start with the Figma design, and by clicking on the UI toolkit on the wizard, and I just need to copy the toolkit to my account, and you can easily create a trial account of Figma, by the way. And this toolkit has all the documentation you need, and you can see here, if you drill into the components we support, it's almost there, like cover everything, but like except galleries. Now what I'm doing is I'm using my very lame Figma skills to add a rating control in the sample app and trying to see if it will work to be converted into a Power App. So I added my rating, and then what I need to do is to get the Figma file link. So I go back to my Power App, name the app, and add the link. And I also need a personal access token. So what is this token? It is basically a token that Figma gives to allow Power App to have read-only permission to your Figma file, so we can know what's there. And for security reason, I blurred out the token text. So after that, I just click create, and this is the 3 screens you see from the Figma file, Pixel Perfect. And I did see the thank you, the rating control I've added. So that's that demo. I've seen questions in the chat. I'll come back to that later. But I do have 2 questions for you guys, so we can decide where we should move next to better meet the needs there. So in the image to app demo that I've just shared, the resulting app is kind of the canvas one on the left. My question is, when you upload, assuming you're uploading an image with form, which of the following apps would you prefer to see? We currently return a Canvas app, but will you be open to the option of us giving you a model-driven app? Because you have a form, you have some data, and model-driven will give you like a 2-screen app with your form ready to use and a gallery view. But Canvas also have this benefit value of allowing you to customize your UI more and make it even more pretty. Okay. Feel free to unmute or type in chat. I can take both. Okay, 100% Canvas. Model-driven is so fast to build. Okay. Canvas by default, but option for model. Okay, cool. Fair enough.
I like the option of having model-driven integration. I mean, it just gives you a more unified integration scenario, no matter what type of app you build. But yeah, I mean, if it could do Canvas by default, but then you have the option for model-driven, at least for organizations that use both, right? There might be use cases for Canvas, there might be use cases for model-driven, but at least it just makes the lives of the designers easier, right?
So, Canvas page, okay. Yep. That's definitely, if you mean the custom page, that's definitely in our scope, in our roadmap to support. Canvas, my tenant doesn't allow model-driven app currently. I think both options would be valuable though. Okay, thanks. Cool. With respect to the time, as I don't see other new comments from the chat, I'll move to my next question. And this is my last question before I go to the Q&A session. So this question is, of course, about Figma to app, as I just showed you how to create a Power App or how to maybe starting from using the toolkit, the Figma UI kit to design a Figma and bring it to Power App to convert it to a real app. So my main questions here, it could be combined that after seeing the demo, do you think you would like to try Figma to app? And what is your thought about using the toolkit actually to design your Power App and convert into an app? Currently, we don't support like any custom Figma files you have. It has to be designed via our UI kit.
Absolutely, I would love to try it out because, you know, I don't come from a web designing background, but, you know, it makes it easier to have more modern looking, you know, elegant looking apps, and you can maintain the same look and feel, have that consistency across all apps in the organization. So if you're able to create a UI kit, you know, it's kind of like a library of kits that organizations can use, we could upload it, and then, you know, it's kind of like a more governed way of generating app designs. And you know, this kind of just revolutionizes how you think about designing apps, Canvas apps specifically, and it makes the makers' jobs really easier. It's more time efficient. You don't have to reverse engineer or, you know, redo some of the work. You already have a UI kit that you could just, you know, use, just like how you show us the demo, and just convert it, not having to redo all of that work. You can focus more on the core functionality of what that app needs to do and extend it. Yeah, I love this. I'm pretty mind blown with how it does and how fast it is. It's really snappy with how fast it does things. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands dirty with this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just feel free to let me know whenever you want to reach out to us or give any feedback. Yeah, others thoughts, comments, or I didn't see many comments there. Yeah, it makes creating apps more accessible to more people. Yes.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I wanted to add the counterpoint to Geeta. When I actually work with UX UI designers at the moment, and they use Figma to show me how the app should look like. And for me,
cool.
it's really easy to go from that image to build the app myself. And I think when you have this effort, like designing it in Figma first, then yeah, I think you want a little bit more than I think it's a cool gimmick, but for me right now, haven't tried it myself. Right now, it's more like a gimmick. And when you actually doing the Figma thing, then you want to have it pixel perfect, want to use variables in your colors and stuff like that. So probably you would need a lot more to make it worthwhile to actually use it and don't have to redo anything yourself again afterwards. But the image thing is really cool, I think.
Thank you. That's awesome. Any other thoughts, or I can move to the next one? Thank you. So please keep the questions flowing into. So I created this little form, which will, I think Chris will show it up later again. No worry if you cannot capture it right now, but this is the form, like only 3 or 4 questions for you to provide feedback to us. And if you wish for us to reach out, you can leave your email there and we will make sure to review the responses and reach out to you for more feedback. But I want to just maybe give 1 more minute before I hand over to Chris to see if there are any other questions you have with the specifically the image and Figma to app features, which I just demoed.
I had a quick question. I'm just trying to visualize or understand how the mechanics of how this works. How about cases where when you have updates to the design, right? How does that keep those apps in sync? So let's say
so that story is not added yet. I would say it is like a one-off work, like you upload an image, you generate an app, but you don't go back to revisit your image. If you have an updated design, then you would need to follow the same process to create a new app, which is not ideal, I agree. But I think if you want, you can put a request using the form we have. And I believe that's something people have asked about. And we do have, one of the things we plan to do is to add the continuity of the image and Figma to app feature. So especially for image, say we want to enable you to continue create new screens instead of new apps via image. So if you have new, probably you can upload create a new screen with a new image.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
Robin, did you run into any errors while creating the Figma file, or you mean just from a design perspective, like creating the file itself?
The design perspective,
Yeah.
the design part.
Yeah, try to play around with the UI kit. I think that UI kit is designed to simplify the process. So try it and let us know if you still think that's difficult. We are happy to hear your feedback. Cool. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Chris to talk about those the excitements in the API to app area.
All right, thanks a lot, Nora. I appreciate that. Like Nora, this is my first time presenting to this group as well, and so thanks for taking the time to listen to us today. So, like Nora said, I'm going to cover topics around how you generate an application automatically from a REST-based API. So you've got the AI magic on the image to app side, and you've got the Figma definition on the Figma to app side. Now, what if you have an API? So App from API will automatically generate a Power App from a REST API. So imagine you're a developer and you're developing a set of Azure functions or any other REST API that you are aware of on the web somewhere. Using this command line tool that we're building, you can automatically generate a Power App that's based on the metadata that defines that API. And so after you do that, we generate the app, you can publish it to Studio, and you can use it to directly interact with the actions that are exposed with your API. Or of course, it's a Canvas app, so you can edit it and modify it as you like. We automatically read the API, the metadata that defines that API, and we generate screens for each of the post and get actions that are exposed by that REST API with a dedicated inputs and outputs that we generate based on how the API is defined. And so I'll show you a demo of that later. And so you can use this to directly test out your API using an app. And we also generate all the power effects for you for interacting with that custom connector, which connects to that API. So it's actually a pretty good learning tool as well to learn how the proper way is to use code to talk with a custom connector. And so in general, the steps that we're going to be looking at here is that, so you've got an API, you need to start this whole process with a custom connector, which is inside of a solution within the Power App Studio, which is how you interface with your API. You run this Canvas generate command, which is part of the pack CLI tool. You specify a output path for the app that you generated, and you point it to a custom connector, and then you run it, and it will generate an app. And then you can do whatever you'd like with that app afterwards. And so let me just get right into it then and show you what this looks like. So first, I'm starting off here with a custom connector that points to a live API. It's called Pet Store Bug Bash. And when I go back to the command line here, I'm just going to paste in my command here. So here it comes, the command here. We've got the path to the output file for the app, and we've also got the name, the connector name that I just highlighted here. And so when I run it, it'll generate the app. If there's any warnings or anything that you should be aware of, it will show that too. And then in the end, you'll get an app that just gets dropped into your folder here. And so I'll copy the path here, and then I'll go back to Studio and then import that directly in as a Canvas application. So go to New, Canvas app, I give it a name. And the underlying API here is one that we use for a lot of our development because it has a lot of sample data. It's basically a pet store API that simulates managing a pet store inventory. That's the scenario behind the REST API. And so when I go to create the app and then open it, and then I can import the app that I just generated. And once I do that, we'll see the app here. And so each of these screens here and each of these buttons corresponds to an action exposed by that API. One of the things that you have to do, at least in the initial release, is go back and re-add the data source that you generated the app from. So that's what's going on here. This is something we hope to improve in the future, but it's not there just yet. So this action here is just a pure get action, and you can see it goes directly against the API and pulls back the data. One of the post actions here is for add pet. So I'll add a new pet to my database. It takes an array of photo URLs, it takes a string name, and then it takes an ID, among other things. We automatically generate this based on the inputs that are defined in the API. And then I'll add it, and it shows you what the API returns after that post call. And so then after that, I can go back to the get pet by ID, enter the ID that I just entered, and we can just demonstrate that we're directly going against a live API here. And so this was the demo of app to API. So yeah, it makes it really easy to go from just a pure code API to a Power Apps Canvas app. You can edit the app, you can use it to test out or manipulate your API, you can use the generated Power Effects code, and we hope you like this capability. This will be generally available in the July Pack CLI release. It's July now, so this should be coming in just a couple of weeks. It comes out with the rest of the Pack CLI, so it's on its way out presently. If you've got questions about it or any feedback, we'd love to hear it. I would also really be interested to hear if you've got any specific scenarios in mind where you envision using this. Learning about that kind of stuff always helps us build better products and understand your feedback better. And here's the same QR code and same link that Norah had alluded to before. If you have feedback around any of the three pieces of Express Design, you can feel free to use this to get it right to our inboxes. With that, I'd love to hear comments, feedbacks, questions, or anything like that.
I'm
Norah,
looking
Chris,
forward to
this-
using this app to API soon. So yeah, this looks great.
Cool.
Especially being that API guy, I would definitely want to explore this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, feel free when it comes out, give it a shot. Let us know. You know, there will be obviously documentation that comes along with it that will explain some of the nuances of it. But yeah, interested to hear about your experiences.
I think
Yeah,
it
Chris, maybe
opens
a
up
quick question is,
scenarios.
did
like
you
for-
share how people can access it? Because this
Yeah,
is...
it's not out yet. It will be in a couple of weeks when the July PAC CLI release goes
Okay.
out. I think someone was talking before about a scenario.
Oh, I
Perhaps.
was just
Oh.
saying I can see this being a different use case, but when I'm looking at it, that's the first thing that hit me. It would be a use case for Fusion dev teams for sure, because specifically with pro coders building out those API endpoints and all of the API-M layers, and if they just want to hand it over for testing and for inspecting and for just analyzing the payloads, the request and response payloads, the makers could totally use this as a way to work as a team in Fusion dev scenarios, just as a way to accelerate the way they build apps. So they have a way to, still make those calls, they build the app from the API, and then they can start extending it to make use of those. So I think that, yeah, it just struck me as an idea when I saw that. I was like, oh, this is mind-blowing. You pretty much use it in testing scenarios too.
Yeah, cool. So then I guess the idea there is that, once the maker gets this generated app, all the wiring is there to allow it to interact with the API, and then they can use their design skills and their canvas layout knowledge to kind of build it into something that looks better.
I had a quick question. I'm driving and listening to you guys. And so was this, you take a data source from an API and generate the app from that data source, or you were generating an app design?
Yeah,
of some sort?
So it's designed to generate an app from an API definition. So you need to start with a custom connector within Studio that points to the API, and then you run the command line program against the custom connector. And so since there's no UI defined there, like we've just predefined the UI, but it creates screens and actions for all of the different post and get verbs that are part of that API.
Okay,
with all
so
the
like,
underlying PowerAddicts code.
with some of the things that I'm doing, I'm working with an Active Directory API for our agency, where I need to know, who's the manager of who and who's which position and their working title and all that jazz. Yep. So I would be able to use the custom connector to connect to our Active Directory API, and it would essentially generate an app for all of those command lines.
Yeah, if you can create a custom connector against it, then you can run this command and use it. Custom connectors are designed to be kind of generic interfaces between the Power Platform and an underlying REST API, whatever that may be.
Mind blown. I'm driving. I don't know that my mind should be blown, but mind blown.
Cool. Thanks for the feedback.
Take care and safe driving.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I noticed, but is there, I mean, will it work with like uploading files and things like that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are several things that are not supported, and the one that you called out right there is one of them. So there's no control that exists within a Canvas app that handles uploaded files. And so if the API requires a file upload as part of its definition, we'll spit out a warning from the tool to let you know that, and then we'll just skip the generation to that particular field when we generate the input for that action.
Got it. Well,
yeah, so
you need to talk to the other team within PowerAddicts to get that.
yeah, for sure. We know it's a gap for the moment. If it's really important and you think there's really key scenarios behind there, certainly file the feedback, and we can use that to influence prioritization. That's one of the things that is a limitation. Other things around like complex nested arrays, the definition of the API is pretty freeform, the underlying API. So there's some constraints we had to put on it, but yeah, those are a couple of the things to look out for.
Right. Any other questions, anyone?
If you think of something later, feel free to use that QR code or that link there and let us know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Norah and Chris. I know,
Thank you.
Norah, the Express design stuff was something that we all knew about, or at least some of us knew about, and that was public. But the app to API was also something I think totally new for us, I guess. So thank you, Chris, for presenting that as well. Thank you both for coming and taking out time to share your knowledge on this call. And hopefully a lot of people here are going to be excited about these features and going to use that the app to API as well as soon as it comes out.
Cool. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the call here. We appreciate everyone joining us today. Thank you again for our speakers today for presenting. Thank you, Geeta, for organizing, getting all the speakers in there's a lot of work that goes in preparation for this call. So thank you to Geeta, Anton, and the whole PowerAddicts core team to get this organized. And we'll see you guys next month. As we have generally mentioned, we don't give out a date that pretty early. We still have to work out some that date with the speakers. So watch out for the tweet that will come out. And also, if you haven't, you can go to vrpoweraddicts.com and just subscribe to the blog, and you should get the updates automatically.